In the ancient world, the historical standard for a miracle was visibility. For a prophet to prove divine backing, they needed an audience. Accounts of previous prophets, such as Jesus, describe healings and resurrections performed in front of large crowds. The presence of witnesses was intended to provide undeniable proof. The night journey of Muhammad stands as the most spectacular miracle in Islamic history, a flight from Mecca to Jerusalem followed by an ascent through the heavens. But there is an immediate anomaly in this event. It occurred entirely in private, with no human witnesses present to verify his departure or return. According to the text of the Quran, the journey was granted to show the prophet's specific signs, concluding that God alone is the primary witness. This creates a unique problem for historiography. Without a secondary witness, historians are forced to rely on private accounts to document a major physical event. Because the event lacks human corroboration, the historical record is built upon oral traditions that began to diverge as soon as they were recorded. The first major friction point is geographical. The traditions establish the Kaaba in Mecca as the origin point of the journey. This map shows the claimed route, a journey of over 800 miles between Mecca and the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. However, a chronological problem exists. In the year 621 CE, a building called the Al-Aqsa Mosque did not exist. The physical structure standing in Jerusalem today was built by the Umayyad Caliphate, decades after the Prophet's death. Mainstream Islamic theology attempts to reconcile this timeline gap through a linguistic argument. The argument states that the word masjid refers generally to a place for prostration, meaning the Prophet traveled to the site of the Temple Mount rather than a specific physical building. This technical defense stands in contrast to the popular theological belief of a physical flight to a grand temple. To maintain the internal logic of the narrative, the destination itself must be redefined to accommodate the established historical timeline. The paradox extends beyond architecture to the most fiercely debated aspect of the event, the Prophet's physical body. Mainstream contemporary belief holds that Muhammad rode a physical beast into the heavens. Yet early biographers recorded the conflicting testimony of the Prophet's wife, Aisha. She claimed his physical body never left her bed that night. His spirit underwent the ascent, while his body remained grounded. Muawiyah corroborated this, defining the event as a true vision. All of these conflicting traditions were compiled by the 8th century historian Ibn Ishaq. Early biographers like Ibn Ishaq acted as compilers of oral history, rather than modern editors. They preserved the varying accounts that circulated a century after the event. Ibn Ishaq navigated these contradictions by adding disclaimers, noting that only God knows the exact nature of how the revelation occurred. This results in an early tradition where the foundational texts contain accounts that disagree on the physical reality of the miracle. These contradictions are not modern academic findings. They caused a literal crisis of faith in the 7th century. Early records describe the immediate reaction in Mecca when the Prophet first shared the account of the night journey. For many, the physical impossibility of a round trip to Jerusalem in a single night strained their belief to a breaking point. The early texts record that the story was so controversial it led some early Muslims to abandon their faith entirely. This highlights the 3 pillars of the historical trilemma: the absence of a witness, a destination building that didn't yet exist, and a body that arguably never left the bed. Despite theological smoothing, the physical evidence and foundational texts offer accounts that do not align. When the earliest architects of the faith disagreed on the most basic physical facts of the event, it left a gap that history cannot close. History cannot definitively confirm the physical details of the journey when the earliest records provide multiple divergent versions of that same night.